proud to look around this room and know many, if not most of you, and have worked well with you over the last 5 years. This is my 4th election in 5 years. I was elected in a special election in 2010, re-elected in 2011, 2013, and now running for my 3rd full term this fall. I live in Jamaica Plain. I live on the J-Way. I grew up in Rosendale and West Roxbury. Been active in the community, active in local Democratic Party politics for many years prior to my election, and truly believe that I have the best job in the world. I see the role of a counselor is to focus on the big picture issues, making sure that Boston is safe, is clean, is thriving, has excellent public educational opportunities, as well as the small nitty-gritty constituent service aspect. I'm joined by Andrew Baldassar in the back, who's one of my staff members, my colleagues from Jamaica Plain, who's doing a terrific job. And I'm very blessed to have an incredible team to work with each and every day. And we have handled, we stopped counting, I think, at 1,500, but there's been close to 2,000 now different constituent service issues, and that's a large part of the job. I'll get into that a little bit. I know this is some more picture stuff, and my time is about to get up. I'll say very briefly, I would never miss an opportunity to go else to tell this story. I had the opportunity of a lifetime to meet the president a couple of years ago at the White House Christmas party. You know, it's a rope line. You got 15 seconds to talk to him. I was planning all in advance what I was going to say to him. So I came to me and I said, "Mr. President, I'm from Boston." He said, "I love Boston." I said, "I represent Jamaica Plain. There's a great little Irish political pub in JP called Doyle's. Next time you and the First Lady are in town, and I'll have you there." And he laughed and said, "I'll do my best. Tell everyone in Boston I said hello," and walked on. So I think we've got about a year and a half. So, thank you. I'm happy to have a conversation. It's a great question, and it's amazing. You know, the mayor has cited this statistic, which is true, which is right now it is the 3rd busiest building time in Boston's history. The first was in the 1890s, the second was in the 1960s with urban renewal, the 3rd is right now. And we see it. How many of you have seen a house on your street go up and go for $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 over asking price? You know, I have, and it's remarkable. I bought my condo on the J-Way in 2006. I joked that it was then the worst time to buy in Boston because I was underwater for about 6 years. And now just the prices are astronomical. So what can we do? There's a number of things we can do, we are doing, and we should be doing. And I'll get to the last question you asked Ayanna Presley. Community Preservation Act is an amazing way to unlock funds for affordable housing. I fully support it. I met at the JP Forum. Many of you were at Kennedy School earlier this past winter. And I think we have to decide what makes sense as to when we put it on the ballot. I would assume a larger turnout next year would be more advantageous, but I think it makes perfect sense. It could open up, you know, there have been thousands of units of affordable housing that have come directly from that pipeline. I want to mention Michael Keynes here, who has done yeoman's work for tenants and tenants' rights to make Boston. In fact, I can stand with him. So we need to make sure the funding is there for real affordable housing units, and also middle-income units. That should be a bigger focus right now because we have the lottery system for affordable units, which makes perfect sense. It's fair, is the right way to do it. But we need obviously more of them. We need to make sure that workforce housing for those that fall in the salary cap of, I think it's $50,000 or $60,000 to $100,000, which would make too much money to qualify for low income, but not enough obviously to afford. So it's a two-pronged approach with that. One thing that I love about this neighborhood, our neighborhood, is when we have development coming in, almost as a rule, we always push them and nudge them to create more affordable housing units. And that's something that we've done well. We've been able to have some successes. That's part of the solution. When we talk about transit-oriented development, which I believe in, but I think we need to be honest, we don't have a reliable public transit system right now, so it's not really working as well as it can. But the mayor's talked about the the corridor right here is a prime location. So we want to balance having more units, having affordable opportunities with what we can handle right now. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is the Inclusionary Development Fund, I'm glad you brought that up, Georgia, is that we had that under the BRA's control for many years. We have just changed that. We're not quite done all the different work that we need to do to have it under DND's control, which is a much more suitable, in my opinion, oversight for this. There's $20 or $30 million in this fund that's just not being used, and it should. So yes, increasing it, and increasing the payout when it's off-site. And I supported 161 South Huntington Avenue. It's very close to my house. It was a controversial project. One of the reasons why I did is we got them to 25% on-site affordable housing units. That was 33 units. That's the equivalent of a small street of triple deckers. And it was on-site was really the linchpin for me because we have to have that. We've seen that work. We've seen real mixed-use development work. Cabrini Green in Chicago is a great case study. If you're not familiar with it, you should Google it, where you can see things do better when we have luxury units with affordable housing, with workforce housing all together in the same place. It works well. So it's something we need to absolutely increase for and make sure that we do it right. So I've been saying for many years now that we should conduct a feasibility study about possibly bringing the Olympics to Boston. One of the benefits of that exercise is having a real planning, looking at Boston 10, 20 years down the road. I think that the efforts from Boston 2024 have been very, very poor, to say the least, and I called out John Fish at a city council hearing and Rich Davey as well. It has been such an insular, closed process. It has been so unforthcoming with the information, with the concerns, that you have seen opposition really galvanize, and it just continues to grow. So I have a lot of concerns about these games. I think that, you know, one idea that I suggested that at these two hearings we had is looking at a more regional approach to it. In many Olympic host cities, it's a 200-mile radius where all the events take place. So this could conceivably be a Boston Games with, you know, New England, where we all share the burden and share the benefits that come with it. But one of the things that attracted me initially was the fact that we were told this could be done with no public funds, and that seems to be not the case, or maybe the case, or back and forth, and we really don't know because we haven't seen a comprehensive plan. So I have a lot of concerns about it. Again, I'm someone who said that we should study this and look at it and have a feasibility study. I haven't been convinced yet. I do want to see a vote on this Olympics, a binding referendum. I said this at the last hearing. It should be a statewide vote with the necessity that needs to pass both in the city of Boston and statewide. So similar to what I put forth, I think it's analogous to the casinos. 2 years ago, I was the only councilor who voted against a war-only vote on casinos because it clearly had effects in the entire city of Boston. And what happened, I don't think many people expected, but it failed in Boston and passed in Revere, and now we're stuck with, you know, this untenable situation, possibly in ever. So I think that we need to have a binding referendum. I think it needs to be statewide and pass in Boston as well.
I think no public funds for any infrastructure. I think a binding referendum, and I think just a completely changed process from what we've seen so far in terms of real community outreach and real transparency that doesn't exist. I'm very proud of the Boston Police Department. And earlier today, I was with the Commissioner Evans, the Superintendent-in-Chief, Willie Gross, and a number of clergy leaders from communities of color, the Black Ministerial Alliance, and a number of Islamic members of the Islamic faith, Muslim faith as well, Islam imams. And it was in response to the young man who was killed in Rosedale yesterday. I'm sure you've all followed this. There was camera footage at it was in Rosendale. There's a park, there's a CVS, there's a Dunkin' Donuts. Many of you have been there. There's a Burger King, and it was video from the Burger King. And it clearly showed this individual. I mean, it wasn't too clear because it was from a pretty good distance, but you could see that he was advancing on the officers. They did not have their weapons brandished. He had something which was later proved out to be a very large knife, like a military-style knife, and was shot and killed. There's not a lot of information that they could get into with us, but suffice it to say, as we've all read in the paper, this was an individual who was being watched by the FBI's counterterrorism unit. I mean, there's more to this story, and it's chilling, the fact that that happened the way it did. But I'm proud of the police because Commissioner Evans wanted to have that meeting, particularly with clergy and with leadership in communities of color, just to show exactly what happened. Because immediately after it happened, there was some misinformation going around social media and whatnot. And I think that it is clear there, you know, relationships in many cities, in most cities across the country, between law enforcement and communities of color is very strained right now, very fragile right now. And I think that given that there's an extra layer of sensitivity that BPD has shown, I think that, you know, this example of what happened today was so removed of everything else, obviously, for the larger ramifications that this individual may have been involved with. But it showed a real sensitivity and a real importance of having that community policing and that open line of communication. I think BPD's done it very well, and I know they will continue to do it. We need to do a much better job on diversifying the ranks, there's no question about it. The command staff is more diverse than it's ever been. It still could be better, but it is worth noting that it's better now, and I give Mayor Walsh credit. He's been clear on that, and I know Commissioner Evans has as well. With the rank and file, it's not as diverse as it should be. We should do a better job. I think it's analogous to my time before I was elected. I was the legislative director for the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. Andrea Cabral, our neighbor, former sheriff, and she made sure. Thank you, Katie. Oh, I agree. She's great. I love her. And there was a similar situation with her corrections officers, that they weren't as diverse as they should be. So she made a real concerted effort with job fairs and other things. We are doing that. The one sort of added advantage to that is in this year's budget, which we will be voting on in 2 or 3 weeks, we've included funds for the cadet program, which is basically allowing young Bostonians out of high school or out of early college to get a job, and it's a leg up into the police department so that they could pursue a career in law enforcement without necessarily going into the armed services, which is a pipeline that many people get there that way. So that's one way we can do it. I think the training is good. I think we've seen it time and again with these incidents in terms of how the police react and react appropriately. But clearly the diversity of the ranks is something that we need to do a better job on. And I think we are doing it incrementally, and we should be doing more, and hopefully we will. It's a great question. So little background, 51 or 52% of property in the city of Boston is tax exempt because it comes under nonprofits, mostly colleges, universities, hospitals, other various nonprofits. We have a formula for specifically colleges and universities called PILOT, which is an acronym for Payment in Lieu of Taxes. And under Mayor Menino, they started a schedule where a Northeastern, for example, and I hate to always pick on Northeastern, but they're one that should be doing a better job and are growing ever more rapidly, would have to pay X amount 1 year and increase it on a schedule. So we're about 2 or 3 years into that schedule now, so you are seeing some. But the fact of the matter is it's the majority of our property, and these are, and it's mainly the colleges and universities. I sort of put the hospitals in a different metric. It's those colleges and universities where if there's a fire, it's Boston Police. If there's a, an event, it's Boston or Boston Fire if a fire, Boston Police if it's an event. So we need to be doing a better job. The way that we've been able to sort of stave major layoffs and closures to our budget is the fact that the rest of the property value is going up so much and development is happening. But we're going to reach a critical mass where that stops. 67% of our budget, of our almost $3 billion budget, comes from property taxes. And things are good. It's a pretty solid budget, and there aren't many layoffs, and we've grown actually a number of departments. But until and unless we have a better commitment from our nonprofits, that's something that is going to, we're going to feel it as citizens of Boston going forward. So I think that's a crucial part, having a better, more robust collection of it, because it is voluntary and most abide by it, but not all do. And I would also look at non-monetary ways that we could have revenue. And the example I often use is that we've got 1 or 2 arborists for the city of Boston. How many of you have a dead tree on your street? You know what it costs? You know what? If you were to call me tomorrow and say there's a dead tree, I'm worried it's going to fall on my car or a kid, get it down, I would call our arborist and they'd say it's a 12 to 18-month wait. A lot can happen. We've seen some major weather events. So I've talked to Ned Friedman, who's also a JP resident, and he's the executive director of the Arnold Arboretum, which Harvard leases from us, has a 1,000-year lease with us, and he's one of the most preeminent botanists and phlebotomists in the world. And he said, what can I do to help? And I said, get us some of your students, some of your top students that can help look at these trees and just help out that way. So he was open to it. I let the Parks Commissioner know. I hope we can get some more payments in lieu of money that way. Not only am I in favor of pushing it, I have been pushing it. Liz Maley and I started writing a letter when we had some hope that the Arbor Way Yard may get some funding back probably 3 or 4 months into my time in office. So this is going back to early 2011. We've since followed up. We've worked all levers that we can. We are told it's coming, we get it. Where's the beef? Show me the money, and all those hackneyed cliches. We haven't seen anything yet. And there's well over 1,000 planned units of housing from Forest Hills to Eggleston Square. I mean, we're seeing so much without a real plan and without looping in the MBTA and transportation and other things. This isn't just housing. This isn't just streetscape. This is so many other things that we need to be doing better. So I have pushed it. I hear the frustration in your question, and I share it. I will keep at it. Hope we can get there. We've been told there was a meeting in this very room with a foundation that was offering to do some work with us a couple weeks ago. I wasn't there, but Hannah in my office was there. So the people are there. People are ready to get to work and just come up with something. But it begs a larger issue that you are right about the zoning code. I mean, we are seeing it. You know, the Bicon Dental, it is a travesty what they were able to do just steps from here. And because of the way the zoning code is written, there was little recourse that we could have, and it's very troubling to say the least. Thank you. So nothing has been done as far as I know. When Councilor LaMattina introduced this hearing order, I expressed concern. I think we should be doing more to encourage the innovation economy. I've used Airbnb when I've traveled. I use Uber and Lyft and even Sidecar, which is a new car sharing service, which is great. And I think that if it's private businesses or private people renting out private services, it should be something that can be done well. I understand concerns from neighbors, and I think, you know, I know you live in the house, so I think clearly it's not the same situation of a property owner that is just renting things out and doesn't have the same on-site premise and oversight. So, you know, I think it works. I don't know what regulations are being brought at the city at this time. The only thing we did do, which I did take a leadership role on, was there was a group that was trying to do a parking space. I don't even remember the name of the company, and I was on Al Jazeera America talking about it. It's amazing what people talk about. They were taking city spots, and basically if you left it, you could sell it to someone. And I said, that's ridiculous. This is public property. There will be murders that happen over this. And we outlawed that, but that's the only one. I think Airbnb, you know, again, like I've been to your house. I know you live there. It's a great little cul-de-sac. I'm sure you have, you know, you're there at all times. So it's, if it works, if it's done right, we shouldn't try to stand in the way of that. It's a great question, and I don't mean to sound defensive on this, but I think we do a pretty good job at the city level. I mean, all of our meetings are streamed and online. It's YouTube now. You're right. Real media was an issue, but it is on YouTube now. So it's
slightly, yeah.
Okay.
Doing a better job. It has a long way to go. Also, the usability of the government website is very obtuse. Also countered that the transcripts from the meetings are not always made publicly available right away. So I think there are definitely. It's
a fair point, and you know, I will look into that. I mean, anything we can do for transparency, we can. As I think most of you know, I'm very engaged on social media. I do all my own social media. I have my cell phone number on my business card, which you are all welcome to have in college. I got a full-page ad in the Gazette the last election with my cell phone number, and I got more calls saying, "Is this really you?" And it is. So yeah, anything we can do to make government accessible and open, we should do. I guess maybe I'm, you know. Before most of us, I think any of us that you will hear from tonight, were on the body. It was sued for violation of the open meeting law, so we take that very seriously. I know I do. I mean, we literally, other than getting together for lunch occasionally, we do not meet with one another for fear of doing that. But yeah, it's a huge issue. I would like to see, I worked for Steve Grossman briefly, who did a terrific job getting the state's checkbook online. I think that's something that we need to do. Priority one is getting the city's budget online in a reusable format. I can tell you this, we had our budget hearing with Joshua, who's the new Chief Information Officer, CIO, and I brought up the fact that the website was cutting edge in 1996. And it is obtuse, it's difficult to navigate, and I know he's a wonderkind and is going to do a good job with it. So it's a fair question, a good point. I was disappointed when I read that as well. I met Julie Burrows, our new cabinet-level arts czar for the city, and she's a very impressive person. She had the first meeting last night in JP. I don't know if you were there, but there were about 500 people who came out. I think that we underuse arts in this city to an astonishing degree. And it is important that the city play a larger role, and not only, you know, support for it. I mean, the funding is negligible compared to many other cities, but events like that, I mean, we have so many incredible resources. The Boston Ballet is world-renowned, and we don't engage them nearly as much as we should. I've met with them. I'm the vice chair of the Arts Committee. They are doing some great work in the public schools, and that's a great first step. But there's a heck of a lot more we should be doing. So, yeah, I think first night was a wonderful, day-long, great event, and people really came together for it. So it should be more than just a party and a countdown and fireworks. We should use some of the great... I'm sorry, Deb.
Arbitrarily just thrust aside because no one wanted to run it. Or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I agree with that. I agree. Absolutely. I know that we had, the Boston was ahead of the curve in the 90s when I interned on the body, and we had the first living wage for companies that did contracts with the city of Boston. I don't recall the exact figure, but it was probably $11 or $12 back in the late 90s. We should advocate the way other cities have done it. I mean, we are talking about among the most expensive cities, certainly in the country, if not the world, to live in. Then yes, we should advocate. We should do more for that. Okay. The raise that was proposed, it was $115,000 initially, and then it was down to $109,000. It was way too high, in my opinion. I voted against it. I offered an amendment with Councilor Presley that would mimic what is done at the State House, where the state legislators' salaries are tied to the Massachusetts AMI, and they rise and fall as such. And they went down 1 or 2 years. It wasn't a drastic amount, but they both went down. I thought it sent the right message. It's fair, and it also removes the awkward situation of any person having to vote in favor of their own salary. I thought the amount was way too high, and I said as much. You know, when you got to that, I thought it wasn't handled particularly well, and was on the losing side of that. But the mayor did the right thing in vetoing it. I think there's a hell of a lot the city council can do and should do, and I would truly. I ran for this office because of a belief in public education. I know it works. Raise your hand if you are a Boston Public School parent or were a BPS parent or grandparent or attended yourself. I mean, you guys know. Not as many as I thought, but you know. We've got terrific schools in what was used to be known as the West Zone, primarily West Roxbury, JP, primarily my district, the district that we live in and I represent. And I've visited them all. I've very engaged with the different SPCs. I was proud to stand with a terrific group of legislators several years ago as we were revisiting student assignment and supporting the Quality Choice Plan. It was myself, former Councilor John Connolly, Linda Dorsina-Forey, Nick Collins, Russell Holmes, and I thought that we had an innovative approach. It ultimately wasn't adopted, but some aspects were in what was our new student assignment. And the reason why I was drawn to the plan that we put forth is because it took apart the argument that you can either have quality schools or close to home or neighborhood schools. It shouldn't be an either-or argument. We can have both. We ought to have both. We ought to look at other approaches. Our school budget is over $1 billion this year. It was a jarring figure or will be for me to vote on, for me to hear, even though we've spent more than $1 billion in years past because of federal and state funds. This is the first time the city's portion is $1 billion, and we've seen some great things happen, and quite frankly, we've seen parental engagement at an all-time high that has really helped jumpstart. The Curley School was one of the most under-chosen schools when I was growing up, and now it couldn't be different. Similarly with the Mendel, with the BTU Academy. The Kennedy is seeing some incredible growth. Margarita Muniz Academy, the first two-way bilingual high school in the city of Boston that I was proud to help support and help get started right down at the old Agassiz and the Mission Hill K-8. We are seeing some good things happening. The role of the city is to pay the oversight. So let me just say, I know my time's up, but very, very briefly, the most important vote that we will take in 3 weeks as we, the city councilors, on the budget. And 6 of us, and I was one of them, voted against the education budget last year because there were some choices that we didn't think were right, most notably the removal of transportation for 7th and 8th grade students. We voted against it. It still passed, but we were able to restore it at least for 1 year. And it's those issues where we can help affect policy changes. It's being engaged. The new superintendent, whom I met last week or 2 weeks ago, is living in Jamaica Plain, which I'm very excited about. And he's got kids. I anticipate they will be coming with him and going to school in JP or in Boston. So we can apply more pressure. We can demand excellence. We can work with the teachers union. I'm proud to have their support. We can work with the parents. I know there's some great parents here that you know, were involved in Quest, which is a great organization. The SPC, the newly engaged Citywide Parents Council, which Jamaica Plain resident Haitian Waramouni has been really active in getting back It's working, it's seeing what we can do, and it's really pushing. We were able to push for a new playing field and track at the Curley School, something that was parent-driven, and we came in and helped with a little bit of money, but it was really a great example of partnerships and seeing things increase. So, yeah, I talked to him about it today, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I'm not sure that I don't presume to speak for him, but I think that a binding referendum is might be more attractive. I don't know that he's going to push it for this year.
And we need the mayor's signature to get through.
I believe it would. It would have to pass the body, and then the mayor would have to sign off on it. Can I talk about sunscreen?
I have a question about sunscreen.
All right. So, I've been in office 5 years, and I have never received coverage on anything even close to this. Probably every coverage combined in 5 years came to this. So I had this brilliant young doctor. She wasn't a doctor at the time. She was still in medical school. Came to my office hours and said, "I know you love parks. I'm studying dermatology. I have my residency at I don't even remember the hospital she's got her residency. She will begin her residency at. But she said, I was in Hershey Park, Pennsylvania. They had sunscreen dispensers. I want to get them at Boston Common." I said, "Why did you come to me?" She said, "Because you're a redhead." I said, "Fair point. Happily, I am." And she said, "And I know you love parks." I said, "Also true." I said, "I think it's a fabulous idea. I don't represent the Common. I'd love to see this at all the parks and playgrounds." She said, these things cost about $100 to $200 on the high end per year. She said, "How many parks do we have?" I said, "Including playgrounds, we have 220 in the city of Boston. This would cost under $50,000 just to pilot it." So we did a hearing order, and the council oftentimes, before we flush out an idea, we'll just have it sort of the framework, we'll have a hearing, and then from that legislation can come. And we did the hearing order, didn't even do a press release because I thought who'd want to write about it. And the Globe called me, the New York Times wrote about it, every network came. I was in the New York Post with the headline, "Who-Ray, R-A-Y. Bucket list." I'm in the New York Post, who'd have thunk it? And the most exciting call was from the Melanoma Foundation of New England, who called me and said, "We have a marathon team, and we raised $350,000 for our marathon charity this year, and we want to give it back to the city." And I said, "All of it?" And they said, "Well, as much as you need." I said, "This is great." We had Chris Cook involved. So needless to say, after many meetings, and we haven't even had the hearing yet. I don't even know if we'll have the hearing or when we'll have it. But we'll be unveiling a piloted program this month in June, where you'll see about 10 or so parks, including the pond, with these sunscreen dispensers. They're organic, they're free, they're safe. It's SPF 35. There's one outside my office right now. I do put it on every day, even cloudy days. It's important. And it's an important thing, and we do laugh about it, but skin cancer is the most prevalent form of cancer and is the most preventable. And, you know, I'm 35, I'm not particularly old, and I've already had 2 freckles removed because in the 80s, you know, I had conscientious parents, but they wouldn't always put it on. And it affects everyone, no matter if you have red hair or not. Every person, every race can be affected by this, and it's something preventable. Obviously, there was a little pushback from some naysayers, but I think it's a great idea, and it's something that we can lead the way. And not only will people use it, but it is also it can be cost prohibitive, particularly for lower income folks. Sunblock is very expensive, but it will also remind people the importance of using it. So that'll be at the pond soon. Thank you. I'm not as well versed as I should be, Michael. I know I did Google it. It was the DC model you were talking about. I worked briefly when I was in college. I was the Latino liaison for former council member Jim Graham, which is quite a feat for a redheaded kid named O'Malley. But I still have some friends involved that still work at the council. So to be honest, I haven't done the homework that I should. But you know, I'm sure I will be in favor of it. I will certainly advocate for it, and you know, I can't guarantee it, but we will do that. I also, there are some other interesting models that are out there that I'll talk to you offline that I just would be interested in your take. And I know it wasn't asked, but I will offer it anyway. But the just cause eviction is something that I know you feel strongly about. I support it. Councillor Jackson and I have already talked about what our sort of way we should approach it, but we will certainly be doing that. I've been proud to stand my office. One of the best things about representing and living in this neighborhood, really both primarily neighborhoods that I represent, is the great relationships. I mean, Liz Malia, I talk to once a day on the phone. We've been working with her with first the tenants on Washington Street and Eggleston Square. We got them saved. There were these other residents that were able to really work out a one-of-a-kind agreement, MOU, between developers and tenants, and then the School Street, we've been working with D&D for some of those residents. So it's a huge part of my job. And Jamaica Plain's strength is the fact that we look like the rest of the city, and it is just so important. Not only race or background or ethnicity, but income level, everything else. We need to protect and grow that diversity, because we're not. I hate the term melting pot. We're a mosaic, and it's important that we, in elected office, can do what we can to protect that. So, thank you.